Welcome to Around the Blockchain. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Awesome. Matthew, welcome to Around the Blockchain. If you can just introduce yourself to the viewers for me.
Yeah, g'day, Matt Keeley, CEO and one of the co-founders of Grow Inc.
Yeah, beautiful. So can you just explain to me what Grow Inc. is and I guess what you guys do?
Yeah, Grow Inc. is a technology company and we have a mission to solve legacy problems in finance with powerful technology, and the technology that we use is distributed ledger, or an extended version of blockchain technology, and what we've built is what we would consider as the most modern wealth administration platform in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matthew, look, you've got a pretty interesting background. Obviously, you played footy. Our West Australian people over here would say that you played NRL, and we call AFL footy. But I won't get into that debate. But yeah, you played football at a relatively high level, and then sort of transitioned into the finance space. Would you mind sort of just talking a little bit about your personal background?
Yeah, of course. So a bit of a unique background. I grew up on a fifth generation farm out in central New South Wales. It still runs. My brother runs that farm, and I guess I left after there. I went to. I always viewed that I'd play professional football, and then I'd go back and work and run the family farm with my brother. After trying my hand at professional footy, I guess I had a great time, but I didn't grow. I'm only 5'6", and they gave me the door after a couple of good years. And I left there. I sort of kept kicking the bucket, playing local league and captain coaching, and that sort of rugby league sort of always, or sport, I guess in general, just led me to meet people with interesting backgrounds. And after being at university, and then I cut my teeth in enterprise IT with a company called CSC. And when coaching a team in Canberra, a really good mate of mine, he became a good mate, was a financial planner. He got me convinced me to become a financial planner, which I said I'd rather be a used car salesman. But I soon learnt that he wasn't a traditional financial planner that we've read about in the paper. He was a deep consultant who had subject matter expertise that actually transformed people's lives by solving complexities that required money, planning or advice. And it really inspired me what he could do. And so that led me on a path to become a certified financial planner. After trying to go back to the family farm after that, we're in a really bad drought. And so I packed everything up, mate, and I backpacked around South America. I landed a gig playing professionally in America. There was a national league over there. I captain coached the Jacksonville Axemen, and on that journey I met some incredible people who sort of inspired me to think that what impact could I actually have on the world. And it was a great question, which was, if you're laying on your deathbed and you were reading a story and you're up to chapter 4, and it was a great book, and at chapter 4 it was about a 26-year-old bloke. I had an interesting time, played footy, done a few things. Would you keep reading the book, or would you just put it down? And I guess that sort of really was a pivotal moment for me, that I really could have an impact, and what would that be? And I came back. I got pretty aggressive into my expertise in financial planning back here in Sydney, and then set up my own high net worth consulting business in Sydney, and then that led me to, I guess, this business that we have today.
Yeah, beautiful. Such an interesting story. I could imagine quite a lot of young Australian males, want to, pursue some kind of athletic background, and not everyone sort of gets to do it. And you've kind of done it in a unique way, which is awesome to sort of hear. I actually funnily enough, wanted to play basketball at a professional level, but like yourself, we're identical heights. I'm 5'7", so not very tall. That was never going to happen, despite what I was sort of telling myself as a teenage boy. So it's cool.
If I wear my RMs, mate, with an extra heel, a Cuban heel, I'll probably make 5'7". So
yeah.
myself short.
Yeah, I wasn't blessed with great genes, unfortunately. But anyway, what can you do? So talk to me a little bit more about Grow Inc. You started out with a relatively small amount of funding, $300,000, I think it was. And then through the years, you've kind of got up to, around about that $50 million mark. And the company itself is actually valued at over $100 million. How did you sort of build such a successful business like that?
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey. If I go back, it started at Grilled Burgers with a guy that I was coaching, Josh. Him and I were coaching at Coogee Dolphins. All things come out of sport, and he'd had an incredible career. And I guess essentially, when we sat there, it was one of those beautiful moments where you think that what impact could you actually have. and what more would you want to do? And from there, it really led to a group of entrepreneurs. There was 4 of us, and we just fed off each other's energy. And the aspiration was to build a member experience for the front end, redefine the member experience for superannuation, which would ultimately lead to Google Maps for people of superannuation. We launched our own super fund. We raised our $300,000 from our original seed investors, beautiful humans, and we wouldn't be here today without them. They then helped us on the back of that raise a further $900,000. That got us along. We proved and validated the technology was as great as what it actually, and that we could redefine the experience for the front end. We tried to sell that experience. Our whole strategy was that we would amass our own customers. We had about 15,000 people join our super fund. Of those, about 4,000 people put in over $50 million of assets, and we would manage that for them. But the whole strategy was that not just on our super fund, we could then actually white label our technology and sell it to incumbents. And the mission was that if we sold it to incumbents like Australian Super, a CBUS, a Hester, all the great super funds that sit out there, we could actually impact 10, 20 million lives and nobody would know it was us, and it'd be white labeled and branded as them. As we tried to do that, we raised more money. Another $3.5 million came in, and there was a lot of belief that we were on the right track. We were so passionate and determined to change an industry that there was something special in our DNA, and the type of people we'd hired were truly there to recreate the future of finance. What happened was we tried to plug into the incumbent technology, the back-end architecture and administration systems. If you think of a super fund each day, it's run by these really legacy admin systems that record your name, your date of birth, what investments you're in, what insurance you have. They place money for you each day. And there was a quite technology couldn't connect. And the second thing was that there wasn't really an appetite to break their ecosystem apart. So our business was actually in a bit of trouble at that stage, and we pivoted the business to say, well, the true problem isn't actually the front end experience; it's powered by a back end operating system. And so we would rebuild the back end operating system. That system is called Tina. It's built on the blockchain, so it's after Tina Arena's song Chains. And I guess the rest is history from there, mate.
Yeah, beautiful. So that Tina technology you were talking about, that is what you refer to as distributed ledger technology. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And how does that back end system sort of work?
Yeah, so it's actually a beautiful story. When we sat down and thought about what was the true problem. The true problem when you look at financial services is that underneath the layer, they have a bunch of parties that they rely on to share information with on a daily basis. So if you think of yourself and you joined a super fund, you have information on your front end app. They pass it to the administrator, they have information, they pass it out to a custodian, they pass it across to the insurer, they pass it across to the government. Everybody has their own separate databases that they're running off. And it was really hard to create a shared set of records, or think of a ledger as just a name or number in a book. Our aspiration was, how could we share that name or number in a book in real time with everybody? And what that would do is drive inefficiencies, reduce costs, and actually enable super funds to take control of their own operating model and ultimately their value proposition. And what that meant is that if you wanted to build applications on top of that operating system, you could build better experiences. So think of your mobile phone. Back before the iPhone existed, we had even Blackberries before that. The Nokia 3310 with Snake 2 was probably the gun phone. You couldn't build applications on top of that. You couldn't have Uber or Instagram or Google Maps because the operating system couldn't actually power it. When Steve Jobs launched the iPhone in 2007, it really had a phone, it had a camera, it had a messaging service, and it had a music player, but it didn't have the millions of applications built on top of it. And so our aspiration is that we could then allow developers and entrepreneurs, hopefully like ourselves, build applications on top of this operating system that would fundamentally drive better outcomes for ordinary everyday Australians or people around the world. So it's really about us enabling others to utilize data to create better experiences.
Yeah, beautiful. It's such an interesting industry, I reckon, the superannuation industry. You're quite a young guy yourself. You were talking to me off camera about your age and stuff, and you're not very old. And to me, superannuation sort of seems to be a bit of a one of those things that you kind of just parks. I'm not quite 30 yet, so it's sort of one of those things that I haven't really thought about much in the past. So it's good to sort of see, someone that's still young thinking about how to make this system better. What are you guys planning on doing with the recent capital raise you've just had?
Yeah, so the purpose of the capital raise was to drive deeper into the superannuation market. We won a couple of our flagship clients and very, very proud of that. But the aspiration is that we believe we can create the future of finance. We believe we have technology that could extend beyond superannuation, where people could actually get a single view of their wealth across one infrastructure application. And so the aspiration for us is now drive deeper into superannuation, redefine the superannuation environment, and then expand beyond super and then become a global business. So it's a very exciting time for us. We've been promising to create the future of finance, and I guess now we've got the opportunity to execute on that really well, and hopefully in 3 to 5 years, the way people look at their finances, the way financial institutions engage with their customers and members will be fundamentally different because of our technology. And hopefully no one will know it's us. So it would be so beautiful to know that we've impacted 10, 20, 30 million lives in Australia and around the world, and no one has a clue that it's actually our technology powering that.
That's awesome. Such a humble statement there as well. Like, not really caring about who knows that it was you guys behind all these sort of changes within the finance industry. Do you find that education about finance is a big sort of issue within Australia?
Yeah, I do find it fascinating that we get educated at school and then we leave school and we have no idea about our finances. Most of us will leave school, university, get a job. We go to work 5 days a week, 48 weeks a year for 40 years of our life. And then someone says, so when are you going to retire? I guess I experienced those conversations in my previous job. And the part that I got to notice was I felt two people had two fears in life. One was dying and the other was running out of money. And I don't believe it was in that order, especially as you got closer to retirement. I think education is one piece, but I actually think that we shouldn't expect everybody to become a scientist of how finances work. When you get in a car, you don't go, well, I have to know how every component of this car works. Or when you utilize your mobile phone, you truly don't actually understand how all the different applications are working. But it's built and it's designed in such a simplistic manner that it is actually designed as a customer centric to drive outcomes that will enhance your well-being. And I think it's up to financial institutions that we've met along our journey. They are all so passionate about delivering better outcomes and about changing lives. But sadly, it's the back-end technology that just doesn't exist. So when I look at it, education is one. But I actually think that if given the opportunity, financial institutions, if there was powerful technology that could enable them to engage with them consumers in ways that is impossible today, they would actually be able to guide our ordinary everyday Australians and people around the world to better financial outcomes. And I guess our aspiration is that we will be the ones that can enable that.
Yeah, beautiful. Look, you were recently featured in the Australian Financial Review. You also have some exciting news to share. Would you mind sort of delving into that for me?
Yeah, so we 12 months ago, we had no clients promising to create the future of finance. In the last 2 years, we've got 2 clients, and one of those is Vanguard Superannuation. If you don't know Vanguard, the second biggest or top 2 fund managers in the world, over $9 trillion in assets. And along that journey, we had to do a capital raise. So I guess what that means for everybody is that we burn more money than we make, or our shareholders actually encourage us to continue investing proceeds into the development of our technology to get us to a better point in the future. And to continue to innovate. What actually happened along that journey, we focused on who would we want to be our investors to help us create the future. We targeted the 2 investors that we wanted. One was Airtree Ventures. Airtree are the premier VC, in my opinion, in the Australian market. They are so thought-provoking and leading. They're backed by some of the top financial institutions with their money, and they're very technology and product focused. We went to Airtree. They led the round. it was tremendous just to watch their partnership style approach. And then on the back of that, we had 5V Capital, who are also one of the premier VCs here, joined in that race. And then the Australian Stock Exchange became if you look at what the Australian Stock Exchange are doing, they are rebuilding their entire CHESS system using distributed ledger technology. It is just so admirable when you actually watch their CEO and leadership team look at the future and say that, we've got 20, 30, 40-year-old legacy systems here running the whole financial markets. They've looked at what are the best opportunities. They've chosen blockchain technology. And we wanted a partner that if we could create the future of finance, wouldn't it be great to have a partner that is a shareholder of ours who also has the same view of what the future could look like and the same view on technology and how powerful it is. So at the end of that, we ended up raising $25 million. That included Airtree, 5V Capital, R3, our blockchain provider out of the US, Citibank, an existing shareholder already, and then the Australian Stock Exchange, and that capital has just allowed us to really supercharge our ambition of creating the future.
That's massive news, Mathew. Obviously, congratulations. What are your thoughts on self-managed super funds?
Self-managed super funds have a great purpose. So I think that they're not for everybody. And this isn't personalised advice either. Just to put that one out there. But self-managed super funds have been a great tool. Unfortunately, a lot of people use them when they probably don't have significant enough assets. It's also been helpful to buy property. But there's a point in time, depending on how much money you or your partner or a collective of 4 people have in superannuation, where it would make sense to use a self-managed super fund, but it often comes where you're probably best to have financial advice overlaid over the top. I should say that a lot of people sadly use self-managed super funds and would be far better off using an industry or retail fund if the pure objective was to generate more money for retirement.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Look, the super fund industry is highly regulated. Do you foresee them or the regulation coming into place where crypto assets might be accepted by industry super funds?
Yeah, I think it's really starting to make an interesting push. Once again, it's fascinating to watch consumer or customer demand. I would say that the regulator and the super funds, but ultimately the super funds, they're trustee of your money, and their obligation is to ensure that they maximise your benefits in retirement. So I'm sure they're working on that. As for, are we seeing much appetite for directly into crypto assets? Probably not, but where we are seeing that there is benefits, I guess, in our view, that it's not necessarily just around crypto assets, but more around what the technology crypto is driving and what efficiencies that can use. So, so I should say that my view is that it is actually pioneering some technology that will create the future. As for whether super funds choose to allow people to invest their money in crypto, I think that will take some time, and I'm sure they will only do it if it's in the best interests of individuals. But as you've probably seen, the crypto world goes up and down. So I certainly, I probably wouldn't promote myself or others putting all of their wealth into crypto but it could be a good diversification if that's what someone chooses.
Do you sort of think that super funds or industry super funds at the moment are sort of a bit wary of the industry just because crypto is such a volatile sort of industry, and a lot of the crypto assets are quite volatile? Is that probably the main hang up?
Yeah, I think also they will have investment mandates around what they can invest in and can't invest in. But yes, the volatility is a really tough one. It's also a relatively new asset class, and so that makes it quite challenging as well. But I should say there are a bunch of fund managers, not so sure in the superannuation investment space, who are really starting to push down the crypto opportunity, and they're really highly regarded. I think just because it is rather a rather new instrument or investment instrument that there is a bit of caution around that. Like all things, as long as it's not, I think there'll be some people who view it as the latest fad. I think it's probably hung around long enough for us all to appreciate that it's probably not going to be a fad. There are true opportunities here, and we're of the view of that what it can bring. And I think that over time, some super funds may choose to go there, but there's definitely already seeing appetite from fund managers, and that's driven by consumers. People like yourself are very passionate about this, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what does the next 12 months look like for you and your company?
Yeah, we've gone through a fascinating journey. You know, when you're building technology, there's there's almost 100 people who work here, and some of the sharpest minds I've ever seen. It's truly beautiful when you watch the way they approach technology. But we've been building this, now it's down to execution. So we've got two enormous opportunities. We must execute really, really well. On the back of that execution, we must then stop and pause and think about where we want to take our product and technology for the future. It's very important to maintain that product vision. And so over the next 12 months, we need to focus on the business that we are going to become and the products that we will build that we believe it will take the industry where it needs to go. But we also need to execute on the business we're in. There can be I guess I've witnessed over the years some founders and CEOs and businesses where they're focused too much on the business they are in, and they forget about becoming the business that they need to become. And then there's other founders in particular, and I've been guilty of this at times, where you can focus so much on the business that you want to become that you forget to execute on the business you're in. So we are making really long-term decisions, so we will often make short-term sacrifices, but the next 12 months, mate, I think we are in for a really, really exciting journey, and I couldn't be prouder of the team to get us to this point. It hasn't been easy.
Yeah, I could imagine it's probably been quite a long journey, and there's probably been many, many sort of challenges that have arisen. Over the next 12 months, you mentioned execution is probably your main focus. Obviously, there's probably going to be challenges associated with that. What sort of plans do you sort of have in place, when those sort of challenges do arise?
Yeah, I think it's your mindset. And it's just incredible to watch our team and how they approach that. Like you got to think of this, when you're trying to create the future, you're running into problems with unknown answers, with new technology. And what is really amazing is to watch a group of diverse individuals, and I should say we've got subject matter experts who've got 20, 30, 40 years experience in superannuation, through to solutions architects who've never worked in superannuation but have done their PhDs in neural networks and Darwinian evolution, identifying sounds the human ears never heard before. When you put them combined with a product owner, combined with people who are truly passionate about a member experience in a room together, and you put the problem in the middle, it is just amazing to see how they solve it. And I think that is probably the special sort of secret sauce or DNA of our business, is actually how our cross-functional, multidisciplinary teams come together and solve problems, because you can't predict the future. There's going to be things that go wrong, but there's nothing better that when it goes wrong, you almost see this sense of excitement across the business to go, oh, we've got a problem, we've got to solve this. And then when you see them walk out of a room and no one thinks it was their idea, that is probably the part that is the most exciting. And then we're on to the next challenge again. So working at Grow isn't easy. I really should say that. You can be smart, you can work long hours, and you can work hard. You can be really passionate, but you can't be one of the three or two of the three. You must be all of them. And I guess I'm very lucky that I think if I came for a job at Grow now, I wouldn't actually get one.
Sounds like you've got a very, very good team behind you there.
Certainly do, yeah, mate.
Awesome. Look, Mathew, do you sort of have any closing thoughts for the viewers?
Oh, look, I guess for me is thank you to yourself. My closing thoughts is that if you are out there and you really do believe you can make a difference, or you're passionate about something, I think there's nothing better than people having a go about trying to get to that next phase and make a difference. And I guess the best thing is probably on my journey is just to the people that have helped me along this way, including the guys from the very start when we started this business to where we are now. don't try and do it on your own. There's nothing better than the energy that you feed off others and where that gets you to. So, mate, no words of wisdom other than if you see it and you believe it, then make it happen.
Mathew, awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you jumping on.
Appreciate it. Thanks, mate. Ta.